Okay. Sounds good. Okay, we are in the middle of Daas Tevunos. We're in the middle of letter number Ein Ches, 74. So let's back up a bit. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, so let's get. I wanted to start in the beginning of the Musar Shmos, right? The last thing we were talking about, right? So we're discussing the nature of the human being, and essentially we're talking about this fusion of the guf and the neshama, right? Correct?
Yep.
And the big takeaway for me was from last time was that technically the guf, or physical creations, which is a guf as a part of physical creations, they function under physical set of protocols, policies, right? And the Neshama, which is spiritual creation, functions under a spiritual set of protocols and policies. And they're very different. The physical protocols and policies are confined, they're limited, and they're so to speak, they're in a negative feedback loop, while the spiritual things are in a positive feedback loop, right? So now, since the person is a combination of both, so there's always a question: which policies are going to be applied for him? Right? So obviously the goal is to switch from the physical track to the spiritual track, right? That was the big takeaway, right? And essentially I was thinking, when you wake up in the morning, you say, Moed ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayom, right? Meaning the way we thank Hashem for giving us another day, right, is we're connecting to this idea of melech chai v'kayom, right? That he is an eternal God. So in other words, we're kind of the first thing that we do when we wake up is we connect to that spiritual set of laws, let's put it this way, to the Chai B'Kayom part, to the eternal, unlimited part, right? So we have a chance to start our day off and right away steer it into, the spiritual track as opposed to the physical track. Correct? Right? Good. So that was the big takeaway from the last time, that we have a chance. Well, not just a chance, but it's up to us to figure out which track we're on, the spiritual track or the physical track. Okay. Then he starts out with this Musar Shmuz, which I'm not sure why he decided to put it in here, but let's see. The Ata Tiri, that's where I want to. It's right. It's like a longish paragraph. You have 78.
Yeah,
it's like 78. It's like 1/3 from the beginning of 78. No, you went. It'll be right there. Now the Ata Tiri. Now you should see. Right there. That's it right there on the top. Okay. The Ata Tiri. And now go ahead and see. Sibuvoy Shel Oilim. The cycle of the world. Ma bein Dorin Kadmoen leDorin Basroin. What's the difference between earlier generations to the later generations? Kibe Emes. Because in truth, a person thinks about it, Asher Nosan Lakim La'anais Boy, and all the things that Hashem made to happen in the world, he will wonder greatly upon the matter. To see Bnei Ha'odam Rotzei to see people running around back and forth, Yom V'Layla, day and night, Loish Boys without rest. Ish L'Darkoi Nilim V'Ayefim. Each person on his own kind of decrepit and decayed, tired way, right? So again, this is, I don't know if we stressed this point enough last time, but what is he wondering? What's his complaint with what's going on in the world, right? His complaint is going to be everybody's busy with business and that and the other, but really what his complaint is, not that there's anything wrong with business, so to speak, right? There's nothing wrong with being involved in activities of the world. The question is to what end, right? Is it towards a spiritual end or towards self kind of indulgement of a physical end? Because the point is, now that he told us that as a human being who's made of spiritual and physical things, you have a choice which track you want to go into. So we're constantly, you look at what's going on in the world, you see that everybody is just choosing to stay on the physical track as opposed to the spiritual track. Right? That's what he calls the darkoi nilim ve'afim, these kind of decrepit, decayed sort of ways. In other words, why is he calling them decrepit? Because physical things are by nature deteriorating, right? For what purpose are they toiling? Al achila v'shtiya, a little more food, a little more drink. Al hevel havolim she'nei klum, or nothing upon nothing, which is nothing. Al oilam shel toihu shebin laila hayom kana machar l'kever, right? On a world of chaos, one night is here, the next day it's gone. Today you're alive, tomorrow you're in the grave. Aval mishi yetiv lirois, but somebody who has good eyes to see, yira v'yoven, he will see and understand. Ki lo yal dober zen nivra ha'odam, that's not why the human being was created. Elohoya ro'ui shelo yia oiskoi asokoi elo b'hasogos k'voi koinoi. It's more appropriate for him that his involvement should be in reaching towards the honor of his creator, right? In other words, go towards the eternal stuff, the spiritual stuff, the spiritual track, right? Kilakach noitzer, that's what you were created for. V'nitin boy das b'chochma rabba, that's why you was given so much knowledge and so much wisdom, right? Not to create new ways of enjoyment, but to create new spiritual ideas. Not to increase in entrepreneurship, or any other things that are insignificant. But rather, it's humankind that kind of deteriorated their actions. And so in every generation, the world is kind of continuously decreasing in this matter. That we are, right? Because since he told us that the physical track is a negative loop, so since we see that people are more and more involved in the physical stuff, so therefore they're kind of they're perpetuating this negative loop. The earlier generation were closer to wisdom, and were more higher to the seichel. But the latter ones, the newer generations are distant from the seichel. And they are drowning in this physicality. The schoira, again, in business, and all sort of stratagems, but those stratagems lead to nothing in the end. Like we already explained above. Okay, the shoyrish calls it, and again, the root of all of this, is what we said before. That the body was created with hester ponim, with the process of the hiding of the light. Not with the increase of the light. So the nature of the guf is dark and muddy. Unlike the neshama, because the neshama is created in the revelation of light. Good. So therefore it's eternal. And it's pure. But however, if a person strengthens his body and makes it dominant, Hashem kind of mirrors a person's efforts. Right? If you choose to go in the physical way, Hashem will guide you in the physical way. And so he's going to be distant from the living light. From wisdom, Daas Tevunos, all of this disgustingness of this world. Okay. Now I have a question. I don't know if it's a question, but let's think about it. What did he tell us in this paragraph? Generations are going up or generations are going down?
Going down.
Going down. right? Yeah. So, and again, we pointed this out before, but this is an ongoing theme. So let's reconnect the dots. If you go back to letter number 40, towards the end, okay, so this is a long piece in 40. Where is it? Yeah. So again, 40 is a very long piece. The line that I'm looking for is towards the end, but I want to kind of remind ourselves of the context over there. Okay, so okay, I'm just going to read, and I don't know if you're going to be able to follow along because I'm going to jump around a lot. So in Mem, he still is in that part where he's describing Hashem's oneness, right?
Yep.
And how the world is created choser, incomplete, right? However, he says, I'm reading this part. So even though the creations are created with a shortcoming, with a lack, right, with an imperfection. However, this chisaron, this lacking, is not a permanent defect. But rather it is a temporary defect, a passing defect. It has to be going to dissipate, it's going to go away. Right? However, there are many ways to remove this imperfection, this blemish. Right? Then he says, and understand the root of all of this. Right? The all lack is begat from Hashem's hiding of his face. Because he didn't want to reveal himself fully right away. Right? Again, skipping a little bit. So, but since the ultimate goal for this concealment is not to remain in concealment, but rather it's only concealment temporary in order to have a greater revelation down the road, right? And eventually remove all of the evil that arose from this concealment. Okay, and then he says, and there were two ways to remove this Hester pun. Either, right, either through the actions of mankind, which is, right? In other words, mitzvahs, right? God, worshiping of God. Right? Ma'aseh mitzvahs, mirim olov oragonos, that as a result, through our action mitzvahs, we bring into the world this hidden light. However, even if mankind does not perfect itself, then Hashem, intervenes anyways, right? So, okay, so that's what he says over here. So, right, so in other words, the Hester Ponim is temporary, right? And it's basically, there's a time clock ticking for the Hester Ponim to be removed. So therefore, the Hester Ponim in itself is not really a permanent defect, right? But rather just a temporary defect for the sake of, right? And then there are two ways to get there. Either you remove the defect through mankind's actions, or Hashem will remove it for you. That's the basic gist over here in Mem, right? And then he goes back, then he continues, and he says, Re'i, I'm skipping around, but Re'i ki hein emes shoy yecholim nei odam liyoy zoichim masehem. The truth is that people would be able to merit through their actions, umakirim hem emes, and they would be able to recognize the truth. They could have left the ways of the sheker. What do you say, sheker? Falsehood of this world, right? Right. So they would they would be disgusted by this falsehood of this world. When they would choose the light that is hidden. And then Hashem wouldn't have to. Then he said, then Hashem wouldn't have to show them that light, force them into that light through this extended golus, right? So if people would have chosen the right path right away, then that's it. That's the only thing that would have been necessary. As long as they would have recognized the kind of the evil. Then he says, really, that whole cycle, he says, began with Adam Rishon, right? Okay. Right? In other words, he had a choice, and he says, and he blew it, right? He was a smart, a wise man. He should have known what Ramchal knows, right? Should have followed the Daas Tevunos, and they should have made the right choice. But he didn't, and so he started the ball rolling in the wrong direction. But he could have, as long as he would have made the right choice, and recognized evil even in theory, then he would never have to have experience. Okay, but why am I bringing you to all of this? So he sets up this picture of Adam Rishon, that he failed. So he failed the ability to bring the world to the removal of that Hester upon him, right? And he basically plunged the world deeper into Hester upon him. Then he says, "V'cheinu lebanav acharav gam kein." So then this continues for his descendants, for the Rishon's descendants. If they would have wanted to appreciate this idea, they would have set this knowledge into their hearts from their wisdom, that would have been enough. They have to recognize it. And they recognize it. But since people did not merit this through their actions, but rather they followed the treacherous world, right, that appears before their eyes in all various justifications that we mentioned above, right, the 5 different main ways that people make a mistake. So then Hashem has to reveal to them but they themselves don't know to appreciate. And this is in the way Hashem reveals to us. How does Hashem reveal to us this revelation? Shehistir ponov hester acher hester, that he actually conceals even more. Okay? That to the point that evil strengthens in the world. In a great way. Moshe Amro, and this is the line that I was looking for. There is no day. There is no day whose blessing, over here blessing really means a curse, whose curse is not greater than the previous day. Right? So in other words, the source for Ramchal's idea, right? The source for Ramchal's idea is that starting from Adam Arishon, we keep making the wrong choices. And since Hashem, again, is saying he's going to force us into the revelation, and the way Hashem is forcing us into the revelation is by actually creating even greater concealment. Okay. There's no day that whose blessing, quote unquote, in other words, occurs, is greater. However, in the end of it all, peace on suddenly, Hashem will come to his palace. And Hashem will be revealed, and all of the flesh together. We'll see, right? We'll recognize. Okay? So that right now, this part, how does that connect with what we're saying now? How does that connect? So on one hand, it seems very similar, right? So again, just like over here, you have Yeridas Adoros. So over here, you have Yeridas Adoros, because really Chazal says that every day is worse than the previous day. Every day is worse than the previous day. Every day is worse than the previous day. However, okay, now we go to Ois 48, another long one. Right, and this is where he talks about different time periods in history. Okay, so over here he's saying, where is this line again? Let me just see where this line is. Let's see if we'll find it. Okay, anyways, so he says over here, all right, so it begins in 48, and it's great to see that it's just, I don't know what's the shortest way of doing this, but So he says, Hazman Harishon Sheishlonu Levar Atahu Hazman Hisalem Yechudo. First, we need to explain the time of Hashem's hiding of his oneness, right? In other words, the present time. Who klaus man avodas hodom? This is the time of the person of humankind, the work, the time of the work, avoid, right? Not schar, not the rule.
Yeah.
And again, he goes that Hashem could have created the world perfect, but Hashem created the world imperfect so that the person should have what to do, right? So again, he created a new Seder Chodesh Mamash, which is not in accordance with his perfection. Only he created the creation as necessary for this avoid for this project. So according to this way, sometimes the creations they degrade. Sometimes they are misaken. And there is freedom or license for the Satan to pull people astray, and to the destroyer to punish, right? And you find various nations who are idol worshippers and all sorts of evils in the world. Okay, so that's the world. But in the future that will change. Okay, so then, but it's all based on this idea of akol b'dei shemaim chutz mida shemaim, that everything is basically totally in bechira, everything is totally in a person's choice. Umizen all the kolikulim agdolim, and this results in all of the troubles and all of the degradations, right? Kiros Adam Rabbolov. Okay, so Hashem lets the world take whatever choice it takes and degrades however it wants to degrade. But okay. Okay. So basically, I don't want to some very long piece, but basically saying over here that that's the beginning. But then Hashem decided that he's going to limit how much this world of darkness and this world of avoida remains, and then he put a border. He says up to this day, but not further. But then he said, but we don't want, Hashem doesn't want it to be like a change mind or type of a thing where one day avoida, one day nothing. So he says in the process of this concealment, there is a shirish, there is a seed that's constantly working to bring it to out of this time, right? And then, right, and that's what he says over here. He says, but since the ultimate goal is to reveal Hashem's oneness, not to conceal it, right? Because the concealment is only a middle ground. There's only a medium in order to reach to the revelation. So even though Hashem created this time of period of good and evil, however, he went back, and he looked with his midah of goodness, and according to his level of dominion, to complete, in order to bring all of that sivuv, all of that going on in this world, to a tikkun hakloli, to a total tikkun, right? Because Hashem put an end to this darkness, which is 6,000 years. This is the key point now. And he decreed this from the beginning, that Hashem's oneness will be revealed. And then the goodness will remain forever and ever. Imkain, so there is such, and this is the key phrase, Kol yom v'yom she'over, any day that passes, Nimtza ha'olam korav yosel shlemusay. then the world is closer to its perfection.
Yeah. Close to the day of perfection.
What?
Close to the day of perfection, not to perfection.
That's not what it says. The world gets closer to perfection. Ella, right? Not only that, Ella Shakodesh Baruch Hu misibois mashapech beoimek atzos. So that Hashem twists and turns in His deep counsel, umegalgel gilgulim tomid, constantly again turning things around, lahavi ha'olam al hashleimus hazeh, to bring the world towards this perfection. Right? Again, he says again, from the depth of his counsel, who is legalgel misiboiso beoimek chochma kolkach, is to turn things in such a way that from this period of good and evil, from that itself will arise the completion and the perfection. So what am I saying? So again, we pointed this out last time when we were learning this, right? So then on one hand, it says that people are constantly choosing the wrong path. And they're constantly plunging the world deeper and deeper into darkness. And Hashem responds to them, Mida Keneged Mida, and conceals it more.
Yeah.
And yet that additional concealment is not a step away from perfection. It's rather a step towards perfection.
Okay. All right. It's like San Francisco. They defund the police. It got so bad that now they restore everything. But people have justice, but what are saying? But they actually got to that point that they realized how stupid they were.
So maybe that's what it sounds like. I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not sure. I don't have the words for it right now. Okay, so what I'm saying is, so coming back to our point, right? Coming back to our Simon 78, it seems to be right. So this is not a new point. That's really what I'm saying. It's not a new point. It's something that he touched upon already back then. Okay, and that somehow both of these things are true. That the world is descending into darkness, and yet anytime it doesn't make a difference whether not that it does make a difference, but regardless of our actions, of whether we're going up or going down, each direction brings us closer to the ultimate goal. Just Hashem wants us to go, I guess, our way. But again, he seems to be saying that even though, in a certain sense, Hashem wants us to make the right choice and bring the world to perfections through our actions, it sounds like Ramchal doesn't have too much hope in humankind, right? Because he's saying generations are going down, and every day is worse than the next. So, right, and every day we are further away from the living light. Okay, so I don't want to solve this tension. I feel like this tension is important. I don't know what time it is.
11 o'clock.
Wow, so we didn't do it that much. Just a chazor. But let's just see at least another paragraph or two. I'm back in 78. And again, he's going back really to the point that he already said before. And now look, this is really what already happened to Adam in the beginning. And to his descendants after him to this day. In other words, again, he's repeating what he said, right? I just showed you, he said in Siman Mem. Because they went after their eyes. Sounds like, right, it's a pasuk from this week's parasha. Vishlitu haguf v'loy haneshama, and they allowed the body to dominate, not the neshama. Alkein gam HaKadosh Baruch Hu holach imohem behester ponim. So Hashem responded, and he also went with them behester ponim. Ula Adam omar mitchila b'zeh esapecha toicha lechem. He told him, with the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. And from that day on, call amal Adam lepihu. All the toil of man is for his mouth. Nefesh lo timale, and the soul is not satisfied.
So,
right. So now, what? If I'm not mistaken, the Gemara Darshan is called Amalat Adam Lepihu in the positive. That what was that a person is born, to toil in Torah. But over here, he's using it in a Pashup Pshat, all we do is work to feed ourselves, and that's it. So this is Kahela speaking, right? So you're like a cow, constantly there's one tachlis, one goal in life, find to eat grass, to feed itself. That's it. And the wisdom kind of runs away from mankind. Wisdom runs away from mankind. V'zeklal godol, and this is the great general principle. The gvul asher hugbu l'boy sichloi. In the confines that one's seichel is confined, kach hemach shevois v'shlodem utayvoiso. So, to a person's thoughts and also his desires. In other words, haloi tiri, look, hanar hakoten, a young boy, lo yakir mahi achochem. He doesn't really understand what is wisdom. V'lo yisav ela klal, and he has no desire for it. Ela adarabba kol tinok bereich leisa sefer. Rather, every child wants to run away from school. Like v'lo yachshav sheish tov ki ima havolim asher misasik behem. And you only recognize good in things that he's, useless things that he deals with. However, as he matures and his knowledge widens, his horizons widens, right? Then he desires more sophisticated things. And really that way, kind of all progress goes the same way. Right? So so the problem is that our desires, right? So he's saying an interesting idea. He's saying it's not that our taivas are not the problem. Our problem is our ghetto mindset. If we had a larger mindset, then we'd have taivas for larger things. When a person's taivas for physical things is because he's in the ghetto. He's in the mental ghetto of his physical world. If he'd be in the spiritual ghetto, or not ghetto, the spiritual frame of reference, then he would not seek physical things. They would be bored, right? By as the pasuk says, then the soul is not satisfied by these physical things. So kach hu leklolus hamina enoish, and this is the general way of the human species. When their seichel was open to great enlightenment, so then their satisfaction only came from wisdom, and whatever was good in truth. And when their seichel was not permeated with spirituality, then they only recognize, they only see benefit in the nothingness and the emptiness of this earth. Okay, well, I guess we'll stop here. But my only question is, last week's parsha, right? Last week's parsha. I mean, Klal Yisrael in the desert, Har Sinai. Pretty. I would say a situation of what he calls seichel amushpa, right? Their seichel is permeated with lots of spiritual stuff. They're definitely on a high level. Okay. And then therefore their taivas should also be high level. And what do they want in last week's parsha?
Yeah, but we're saying this was called rough.
What?
It's the thing came up from those joining Jewish people.
No, blame it on the Erev.
Yeah.
You're in the blame it on the Erev.
Yeah, they were.
I'm not in the blame it on the Erev. Because
no, but they introduced as of you in the spread.
I don't know. So
yeah, maybe the Jewish businesses they wouldn't come up with the idea. The idea was introduced and then taken.
Perhaps. I don't know. Zimri was not near Rav. That's not the lesson parsha. That's further out, but
yeah.
Zimri is not a Rav. Pretty. Again, so you have to either come maybe Ramchal's view on all these things that maybe there are other reasons for why they want these things and not necessarily physical. There's more to it. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. But so in theory, I hear you. I hear him that somebody who's involved in very lofty things, these low-level physical things, it's like it's beneath our dignity. It's not satisfactory. On the other hand, we see that sometimes even holy people do very, very unholy things. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh, first step first stop region. Start the video, but
stop the Zoom altogether.
Oh, recording. Stop.